But there were a few other things. I'm trying to remember. What were the other ones that I think he misled people on? There was something in there around... there was something around content, like for social media platforms. In Silicon Valley, people care about this stuff.
Right.
It was like, hey, like, do you agree that the government shouldn't be moderating content, that they shouldn't be censoring it? Because this was kind of the very early days of the government interfering with this stuff. It was...
When did the government first start interfering with social media content? Do you know what the initial issues were?
So I don't know the initial issues, but like, let's look at this from first principles. Ignoring the social media part, when did the government start intervening in media? I mean,
from the beginning.
From the beginning. One of the reasons everyone loves Alexander Hamilton. He's a really popular founding father. I have to admit, he's actually my least favorite founding father, partly because he supported central banking. I'm just not really a gigantic fan of it and how it's turned out. But interesting. And by the way, he was also very anti-immigrant, which is so funny because
really?
Go look up the interview with the directors of Hamilton the musical when they were asked, why did you make Hamilton the musical super pro-immigrant, when in reality he was very anti-immigrant. I mean, he literally said immigrants are a poison to our nation. I mean, he was really against it, and which is funny because he was himself an immigrant. And I mean, he was like, blood and soil all the way. I mean, he was really into it. And their answer was, we wanted to represent Hamilton as we think he would have existed in the climate of today, not with the information he had at the time. Anyway,
they made a fake person.
But one of the other things about Hamilton is that he did not support the First Amendment. He actually thought that the government should be able to criminalize speech that lied about the government in a critical way. Now, to be clear, he didn't think they should be able to regulate everything, but his point was, if someone's lying about the government or what it's doing or its authority, we have to be able to stop that. You actually had a counterpoint in people like Benjamin Franklin, who of course had done like letters pretending to be the king of Prussia and lots of satirical stuff pretending to be the king of England. He said, no, you can't, because if you say that we can't make up lies about the government, then the government just needs to make anything that's critical about them a lie, because if it's a so-called lie, now they can stop it. And so he said we can't give the government the power to do this. So Alexander Hamilton was not a fan, and I think that thread has been there through the history of our government. There's always been people from literally before the founding who believed that the state should have a role in influencing the media. And you're familiar with all of the stuff that came out post JFK about the media influence operations. What was it, like 55 or 60 different media assets were activated for the JFK messaging campaign in national media. And so I guess getting back to your question of when did they get into social media, I think it was probably continuous the whole time. The moment that it was of any importance, the moment that it was being paid attention to, I'm certain that the people who were running these media influence operations immediately jumped into that new sphere. I can't prove it. That's just my... I think
before social media, though, like, I wonder if they were preparing for something like that, or if it started to happen and they didn't recognize what an impact it was going to happen.
I think they understood the impact of the internet before social media. So even before social media, you had people writing blogs, you had people doing, you had these bulletin board systems, and it's well known that the CIA was active on early bulletin board systems pushing the government perspective.
Of course.
And so I think they've been continuously involved in every internet platform, even before social media, as we call it today now, was popular.
I was watching a particular political debate on YouTube, and occasionally when I see something that's very contentious, I'm like, let me go to the comments and see what it is. And it was all bots. It was wild. The real obvious bunch of zeros and numbers after a name, John, 6 zeros, 92,
no profile picture or some ridiculous AI-generated thing.
And then like a very hardline stance one way or the other, very inflammatory, causing arguments. I was like, this is wild. This is all bots.
Well, you're familiar with dead internet theory, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Explain that to people.
So dead internet theory has been around for quite a long time, probably long before the internet was actually dead. And it's this theory that over time, there will be increasing amounts of literal robotic content, and then also kind of like astroturfed fake content, like one guy running 100 accounts. And the theory is that eventually there will be almost no real human back and forth on the internet, that it's actually kind of just propaganda and counter propaganda playing out on a stage for our benefit by moneyed interests, whether it's corporations, the government, foreign adversaries. And, there might be a few people in the mix, but it's primarily going to be just robots arguing with each other. And I think that more and more it's becoming true. I mean,
well, it's getting close. Like that FBI analyst that when Elon was in the middle of buying Twitter, who looked at all the different bots and, they were trying to say it was 5%. He said, no, I think it's 80. 80%. Yep. So when you're on Twitter and you see people arguing and making points and even posting things.
Well, and you might remember there was the time where a bunch of the stats for Wikipedia editors came out, and it was some enormous fraction of edits coming out of one location in Arlington, Virginia. And it's like, oh wow, Arlington, Virginia, famously the center of academic rigor and excellence. There's supposed to be a lot of people living there who they just really care about making sure Wikipedia is accurate.
How odd. Yep. How odd.
Could I take a quick break and get a little bit of water?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, there's water right there, right in front of you.
There we go. Thank you. I missed that.
That's all you need?
Yeah.
We have filtered water in that jug.
I'm just gonna need I need to
pause, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back.
I need to take off my jacket too.
Okay.
It's good when you're walking around and there's air moving on it because the copper conducts heat away really well. But just sitting in here, it's...
Is this actually copper?
Yeah, here, check it out.
Wait, I want to do this on camera. Are we still rolling? Yeah.
Oh, look.
Okay.
You keep rolling. Here you go.
That's a copper jacket?
It's from this company called Volabox.
It's actually made out of copper?
It's actually made out of copper.
Oh my God, it's so heavy.
It weighs like 4.5 pounds.
This is nuts.
It's something like 3,000 miles of copper, of ultra-fine copper thread.
Does this protect you from EMF or maybe some Russian signals?
And if you put your phones into that pocket, then no signals go out whatsoever.
Oh, so it's like a Faraday cage.
It's a little wearable Faraday cage. So it's actually got some use beyond being cool. But
company makes these?
Yeah, so the company Volabox really interesting.
Volabox.
They make...
Can I try this on?
Yeah, of course. They make a bunch of really cool clothes out of very novel materials. Some of them very futuristic. Like they make a jacket out of the material that the Mars rover parachute was made. So it's like a supersonic parachute material made out of Kevlar. It is pretty weird.
Make me feel very restricted.
Well, you're also a lot bigger than me, so I'm a little skinny.
But it seems to fit most. But it just seems heavy and restrictive.
You do have to make sure you size it where there's plenty of room to move around inside of it because it does not stretch at all.
What's the benefit?
So there's a few benefits.
Okay.
The first is that it looks sweet.
Jamie's ordering one right now. Look at him.
The other is that copper is an antimicrobial material, so you never get mildew on it. You never get mold. It magically kills all of that stuff. Also, I mentioned earlier, the pockets are basically a Faraday cage.
Right.
So if I want my phone to get calls, I keep it in my pants pocket.
Plus,
if I want to disappear,
if there was a jacket that Palmer Luckey was wearing, I would hope it would be this. Like when you showed up in this crazy jacket, I'm like, that's what I would hope.
They've got a new one that's a T-shirt that's made out of carbon nanotubes. So you should check that out. They're working on some wild next gen stuff.
Whoa.
Sorry, give me just a sec. I just got to I actually just need to take a mental break. Is that okay?
Take a break. I'll take a leak.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
For a second. So there's a place called Commando Store.
Yeah,
we're talking about these pants that I have.
Well, yeah, we're just talking about your Tiger Stripe Ranger panties. And Commando Store is doing these reproductions of vintage gear, like Vietnam era U.S. gear, Russian gear, using modern materials but old camo prints, and they're super authentic. But the problem is a lot of this actual old gear, it's all mildewed, it's destroyed, the thread is all crusty and busting apart.
Right.
And so if you actually want to be authentic, like the guys in the Vietnamese jungle did not look like they were wearing old, crappy, busted apart gear. Their gear was fresh. And so if you want to look just like they did, you actually have to buy newly manufactured gear. But I'll send you some links. They have a lot of really cool Tiger Stripe stuff that's very, very cool and authentic.
Nice. When you were a kid, did you ever imagine you'd be selling weapons? Does that ever seem surreal to you that you go from being this guy who's really into VR to weapons manufacturing?
It seems a little bit surreal, but only a little bit. Growing up, I always would be the guy who identified with the guy in the story who was making the tools. So like when I would watch James Bond, I never thought I'm James Bond. It was like, oh, I want to be Q. Like I want to be the guy making the tools.
Or Tony Stark.
Exactly.
Both.
Tony did it all. And so I have to admit, like, it's certainly the thought had occurred to me. Like, one of my favorite anime characters was a anti-hero named Seto Kaiba, who ran a weapons company that was also a virtual reality company. And like, they built like virtual reality gaming simulator pods and also weapons. And so it's really weird. Like, you start to ponder, are you really making decisions with free will, or are you actually just like enacting the programming of when you're a kid? Like, it's hard to really know, but like, when people are like, oh, but, you know, Palmer, how'd you get into this stuff? It's like, I mean, I remember being like 7 years old and thinking about the stuff. Or like, you watch like Power, like I grew up watching Power Rangers when I was a really little kid, you know, reruns of the first season of Power Rangers. And the character I most identified was like the techno wizard of the group, Billy, who was building like flying cars and upgrading their robot suits. And I don't know, it's really weird when you end up as an adult just doing exactly what you were fascinated with when you were a kid, because what you're fascinated with when you're a kid is really, it's a function of what's put in front of you, right? Like what if I would have had different things put in front of me? What if you lived
in Montana?
Yeah, what if I lived in Montana? What if what if I what if? It's like, is there a world like I grew up in Nashville and I would have inevitably been a musician? And like, almost without even being able to choose it. Even if I went in one direction, would I have ended up coming back to it?
Probably. Look, all those things are interesting, and you're a guy who's into interesting things. It's just finding whatever the path is that you think is interesting and just going in that direction. Your direction was kind of established by your interest when you were younger. So it probably seems surreal just in the fact that you've gone so far with it to the point where you're actually making weapons to defend other countries.
Well, that's the crazy thing is, I think part of the reason it's so wild, my progression, is it only happens if it's successful continuously.
Right.
So like, a world where I don't basically figure out how to build good virtual reality technology is one where Oculus doesn't exist. If Oculus doesn't exist, I don't get bought by Facebook. I don't go to Silicon Valley. I don't become kind of one of the leading tech figures in that industry up there.
You have to hit every green light.
You have to hit every green light. And you know who funded Anduril when I started it? Like, yes, me. I put a lot of my money into it, but it was all of these same investors who had invested in Oculus. I mean, literally the same people. So like, Brian Singerman is a good example. He was a partner at Founders Fund, which was Peter Thiel's investment fund. They decided to put $1 million into Oculus before any other fund was willing to give us money. So they were the first institutional money into Oculus VR. And then he ended up being our first investor also in Anduril. So like, you're talking about like the same people, even like these relationships come back around. And then that turns into running a weapons company. And then that turns into building more efficient weapons. And then like, one of our recent wins, we were competing Anduril with Boeing and Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman to build the Air Force's first AI-powered fighter jet. So the first fighter jet with no human pilot, not limited by human ability, instead limited by the ability of this robot brain making the whole thing go. And we beat them. I mean, how crazy is that to like, for like, that's what's crazy to me. Like, it's not sitting here crazy like, oh, is it crazy I'm building weapons? For me, it's crazy. Like, it's not that hard to imagine. You end up building, guns for, the Marines. But like, what's really, nothing against the Marines or the people who build guns for them. I love those guys. The crazy part to me is that all these things have gone right over and over to the point where I can literally have billions of dollars at my disposal from my investors to build multi-million square foot factories, to act like the Air Force's first AI fighter jet, which is the official designation they just gave it is the FQ-44. F for fighter, Q for unmanned, and then 44 is the number designation.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing. When I lay awake at night, that's what I'm thinking about. It's not so much that I am building weapons, it's that we're like actually pulling off things that make a difference. And by the way, AI fighter jets.
There it is.
So that was wind tunnel test. And you'll notice there's no protrusion for a cockpit. So it's a stealth aircraft, low signature, uses the same weapon systems that a real fighter jet uses.
That's what it looks like in the front?
Yep. So this was that was a very early, very, very early propulsion system test. And one of the crazy things.
Is that what they look like?
Yep. Yep.
Bro.
So one of the crazy things about this is that the United States, so the idea is you have a bunch of these for every manned fighter because they're cheaper, they are more expendable, you can take more risk with them. So imagine this, I've got an F-35 flying with 5 of these things. The original name of the program was Loyal Wingman. The idea is that I have a loyal wingman, does whatever I tell him, I can talk to it like I would any human coworker, and it's going to go in and do what I tell it. But it's never going to question my orders. It's never going to try to save itself if it means ruining the mission. And one of the craziest things about autonomous aircraft is that the United States has spent basically a century figuring out what works in air combat. I mean, you've seen Top Gun, right? Mm-hmm. They have this book of tactics that they need to learn to stay alive, how you manage your energy and your altitude and your position so that you destroy the enemy and you don't get destroyed yourself. There's another book of tactics that will allow you to destroy the enemy, but will probably get you killed in the process. We don't teach those generally, or if we do, it's in the context of don't do this. All of those tactics are on the table when it comes to AI-powered fighter jets. I can now have it doing things that are so risky that a human pilot would never even try the maneuver. Because let's say it's a coin flip. It's a 50-50 chance that you're going to die, but a 100% chance that I'm going to be able to take out the enemy target. Imagine going after something where I know I am probably going to get shot down at the end of that maneuver, but I definitely take out all of the surface-to-air missile launchers on the shore, which then allow everything else to come in through the gap that you just cleared. You'll make that trade every day. You'll trade a cheap AI fighter jet to blow up a bunch of really expensive manned or autonomous systems in the air or on the ground every time if it allows you to accomplish that mission. And so autonomy, it really changes the game on this stuff. It's not an incremental change in tactics. It's a complete revolution.
What do you think that New Jersey shit was all about?
Into the unidentified aerial phenomenon.
What was that all about?
Well, so what's so interesting about the New Jersey stuff, and you're probably tracking this as well or better than me, but it is so perfectly aligned with things that we've seen in the past. Like, you're familiar with all like the overflights and hovering over nuclear facilities and military bases in the past. Mm-hmm. Here's what I think happened. I think that there was something really weird that was going on. I think briefly there was something that was really unexplained. And then what happened, unfortunately, is everyone found out about it online. Everybody got their drones, put them in their cars, drove out there to go out and try and fly it. And then I think that the next 3 weeks were a bunch of idiots with drones flying in circles looking at each other. I've seen all these videos. 99% of them, it's pretty obvious that the thing they're looking at is another DJI drone that is also looking at them and saying, "Oh, dude, oh shit, there it is." Like, it was kind of this crazy media circus. I think there was something that was real. And then very, very quickly it evolved into being just kind of a flash mob social media circus.
I think that's probably accurate because a lot of it was in Austin as well. It was like these enthusiasts were getting their drones out everywhere.
That's right. And
it was like, it's drone time.
Well, have you heard the what do they call it? There's a theory that someone's come up with, and I forget what it is. It's like proliferation masking or something. Have you heard the theory that modern drone technology was seeded by aliens so that we would create a bunch of things that would be up in the sky that look kind of like their aircraft, so that they would basically act as cover for the real activity? Have you heard this theory? I don't really believe it, because I actually have met with the people who kind of invented modern quadcopters and flight controllers. Like, but the idea is very interesting, and it makes me wonder if there might be some truth to it, elsewhere in the world. Like, it sure is convenient. Imagine that you're an alien. You're regularly operating around military bases, nuclear infrastructure. Wouldn't it be convenient if there was something else that people could explain away as, like, wouldn't it be great if there was something that also darted around and hovered in place and was very quiet and just little tiny flashing lights? Like, wouldn't that be really convenient as a cover for what you are doing? Because these same activities in like the 50s and the 60s, there was nothing like that, right? Like, back then, if you said, "Oh yeah, I saw 100 red lights orbiting around that nuclear facility," all you could say was, "Holy shit, what what in the world could that be? And today it's so easy to say, oh, it's just some drones.
Right.
And so unfortunately, it's a lot harder to know what's real. And I wish I could travel back in time, even just 10 or 20 years to do the Mulder and Scully thing I talked about earlier. Right. Be the billionaire, the billionaire James Bond X-Files guy with a badge and a checkbook. I feel like you could really find some interesting stuff.
When you say that something weird was happening, in New Jersey, what are you saying?
So something that was observable by some sensors and not by other sensors, and that's really the common thread between a lot of these things. Like it'll show up on visual, like a guy sees it with his eyes and he sees it with a thermal sensor, but it isn't showing up on radar. Or something they'll see it on radar, but they can't pick it up on other sensors. And of course, there are some things where it's multi-sensor, but in general, when I say something weird, it's not obviously just drone, or weird in that it's acting in ways we don't expect. Like, how does something move so quickly and not have any skin heating? Why isn't it white hot if it's moving that fast through the air? How can it change direction so quickly without the airframe tearing apart? That's what I mean by weird. And look, I don't know what this stuff is.
When you say but weird, like what was observed? So
the weird thing that was observed was primarily that there was something there in an area that it shouldn't have been, and that there shouldn't have been anything. There should not have been anything that was able to endure for that long in that area with those characteristics. Like this little tiny drones that cannot show up on radar and that can, kind of hide in place like that. They don't have hours and hours and hours of endurance, right? They fly for 25, 30 minutes tops. And then also they typically would need to be launched by something, right close to there. And the particular area it was in, it would have been really hard to launch from one of the nearby areas, get over the water, get to there, and then stay there as long as it did. It's not the weirdest thing that people have seen though. Like the Hellfire thing recently with the missile. That was some of the weirdest stuff that I've seen.
That's so weird because it got hit and it just shook it off and kept moving.
And it looks almost like there were like pieces. It's like someone reconstituted.
Right, like it took pieces of it.
So I don't know if you've done. Everyone wants to believe that it's aliens, and like that's what I want to believe.
Of course.